Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is the National Intel Report. I'm your host, John Stadtmiller, with you on this Wednesday. There's another hump day, and is there a substitute we can use for hump day? Is there any generic that means the same thing?
The middle of the week?
Middle of the week. Okay, that doesn't quite have the same ring to it. It's the 19th day of July, 2017. And the reason why you're hearing that faded voice in the back, can you get that volume pumped up a little bit? No, not on there, on your microphone there. Testing. Say something.
I could just get closer.
No, I don't need you any closer to me. I wanted to clear up a misunderstanding that I've learned that you've been getting phone calls, sympathy phone calls from listeners out there going, John treats you so badly. Oh, why is he always picking on you? Michael, I want you to fess up here. How many jobs have you had where the boss actually makes you coffee?
I think one.
And that would be?
This one.
Yeah. Well, and of course I've got an ulterior and selfish motive to that. I figure if you're pumped up on caffeine, you'll be more alert on your job. No, that's not true. I make myself coffee, and I deliver coffee to Mike every day. But I just want people to understand that when I pick on this guy, it's done out of a sense of irony and sarcasm. Mike, do you get the idea that I really don't like you?
Oh, yeah. John hates me.
Yeah. That's why you're still here. And what you don't know is he covertly screws with me. It's his brand of humor. Like bringing up this weird bumper music, for example. I'll be sitting in here ready to pick up on the show, and all of a sudden in my ear I hear something that I wouldn't listen to if you tied me down and had a gun to my head. And to him, that's his brand of humor. So understand, listeners, we like each other very much here at the network, so stop the calls of sympathy to Mike because he doesn't deserve them. All right. Thank you, Michael. I appreciate that. All right, yeah. Oh, God. You know, people's perceptions become their reality. They get something in their head, and that's the way it is. They won't think of an alternative. You know, that's something that I've had to do over the years, learn how to do that. Wait a minute. I've been programmed, and that same button is pushed, and I react the same way. Well, experience and maturity will teach you that, okay, slow your roll here a second. Is there another explanation? And I think the greatest compliment, one of the greatest compliments that have ever been paid me, came the other day from the lady in Canada. She said, you're so balanced. Well, I try to be. I try to be sane about my job in this insane world. And I don't know how much longer I can stay sane because things are getting crazier all the time. At any rate. On tomorrow's program, just a heads up, Gerald Salente will be on with me. And today, it's just me and a buttload of information. Now, we've all heard the information. And DV Kid yesterday hit the anvil hard enough that rung in my head. We are being inundated with information. And that is true. There is a plethora of information on just about any subject out there, and differing opinions and explanations about information. So we have to sift through this stuff and ferret out the stuff, trying to decide which is salient, which is important, what's a priority, what can stay by the wayside, what needs to be talked about now, and on it goes. And there's always new crisis being thrown in there, so it diverts us. Oh, somebody just threw a grenade in my foxhole. Sometimes it has the pin pulled, sometimes it doesn't. And you've got just very little time to make up your mind what you're going to do with it. But things have been rattling around in my head in the last couple of days. And things of the past have always haunted me. I've always had open-ended questions. Never an answer to, but all these open-ended questions. And this is starting to gel in my pea-picking little brain. And I've got to share this with you. Let's start out with this one. Jesse Ventura. I think he was in Arizona. And it was kind of an impromptu sit-down. And he was talking about his term of governor, only one term, mind you. And a little while after he got into office, he was he was called into the, let's call it the room. It was the basement of the Capitol. And he walked into the room, and there were 23 gentlemen suited up and sitting. And guess where they were all from? The CIA. And he says, "What's this?" And they said, "Well, we just want to ask you some questions." He goes, "Wait a minute. At first, I got a question for you. Who the hell are you people, and what are you doing here?" Well, he said half of them responded, gave him a name, and half of them didn't. And there was a series of questions, and it didn't strike him as to what had actually had happened. So he called up his buddy Marchenko, the guy, SEAL Team 6, read whatever, and wrote books and all this stuff, and a friend of Ventura. And he called him up, and he says, "Strangest thing just happened." And Marchenko asked him, he said, "What kind of questions were they asking you?" And then he reflected back, and lo and behold, the main thrust of the questions and what they were really trying to get out of Ventura is, how in the hell did you get elected governor of Minnesota? Whoa, now there was a good question. I don't even think Ventura understood at the time how he got elected. But it was their job as intel gathering to let the powers that be know what's going on in the states and give them the pulse, the political and the economic and all that other stuff. Which, by the way, the CIA is not supposed to be operating on U.S. soil. Listen to Mr. Ventura's explanation out of his own mouth. Mikey, do I have my pot up? See, I've got to remind him to pay attention. He's lost in the cyber world right now as we speak. What are we working on in there, Mikey? I'm sorry, what? Oh, putting up a story. Oh, you're looking to put up a story. No, you're looking at a story that I sent you to put up, or you're just looking for stories? I didn't say, yes, I did. You better check your damn email, brother. All right. That'll keep him busy for the next 20 minutes. Here is Jesse Ventura talking about the CIA implanted in state government, his CIA interrogation, and his little trip to Cuba. Trip to Cuba is not as relevant as what he says about his interrogation from the CIA. And they just wanted to know, how in the hell did you get the governorship?
And I can only assume Minnesota's not the exception. Did you know the CIA is implanted in your state government?
No.
How are they? Well, I'll explain. First of all, the CIA mission statement says they're not to be operational within the U.S. So they're violating their mission statement. Well, in Minnesota, only the governor and the chief of staff are aware of it. That there's an implanted CIA person in the Minnesota government at a level to where he doesn't come and go with elections. It's a permanent position. Why? Why do they violate their own mission statement? And I can only assume Arizona. I don't know if you have one, but I don't believe Minnesota is the exception.
Did you know who it was in Minnesota?
Yes.
And what was the position in Minnesota?
The position was at a deputy level in one of the... You know, I won't go far enough to say, I won't say names because I'm not going to give Valerie Plain.
Was it an agency type position?
Well, it's an upper level management position.
Okay.
That's permanent. In fact, when this person retired, I was then introduced to the new one. They then recruited a new one and had that person implanted in Minnesota government. If you're also not aware, 1 month after I took office, I was requested to the basement of the Capitol where I was interrogated by 23 members of the Central Intelligence Agency, and I was the governor. I went, because being the former military, you kind of feel obligated. You don't know what it's really about. I walked into the room, and they put me in a chair at the end, and they were in a big half circle around me, and they interrogated me, questioned me. And having met me, you'll realize how I handled it. I walked in and I sat down. I said, well, first of all, I said, before you ask me any questions, I have a few for you. I said, what are you here for? I said, your mission statement says you're not to be operational in the United States of America. Why are you here questioning me? And why are you violating your mission statement? Well, I couldn't get an answer. Him, Maud, that's the way they are. I second said, I want to go around the room. I want you to tell me your name and what you do. And I'm the governor. Half of them wouldn't. Half would. I don't know if they're telling the truth when they said to me.
What did they question you about? What was
Well,
the purpose?
okay, when it was over, I went home very puzzled that day. And when I got home, I thought, who can I call that could clear this up for me? And one name came to me, and his name is Richard Marcinko. Does anyone know who Richard Marcinko is? Dick Marcinko writes the Road Warrior books. He's a 32-year member of the Navy SEALs. He created SEAL Team 6, the anti-terrorist unit. He created Red Cell. And Dick worked very closely and many times with the CIA, whom we in the SEALs lovingly call Christians in Action. That's our slang term for the CIA. We call them Christians in Action. Hey, we're SEALs, come on. We're not your normal run-of-the-mill. Yeah, we don't know any better. And so I called Dick, and I said, Dick, I just had a meeting with 23 members of the CIA in the bowels of the Capitol. I said, and I can't figure out why they wanted to talk to me. And I said, you're the guy who I probably would have calling because you would have the most intel to me. And Marcinko started laughing on the other end, and I said, he said, I've been out of it now a few years. He said, I can't directly tell you why, but he said, I have a pretty good idea why. I said, tell me, you're leap years ahead of me. He said, they didn't see you coming. And what's the CIA's job? Their job is to do intelligence reports to let the government know trends and things like that so that the high echelon government people can make, hopefully, good decisions based upon intelligence. And when I thought back to the questioning, it was all about how I got elected. He was right on. They wanted to know what I did. I don't know, maybe to stop it from ever happening again.
All right, let's stop it there. That's the bulk of the information he relays in that interview. Okay, so take that from the governor position to maybe president of the United States. I mean, wasn't it obvious, folks, that everybody was shocked and dumbfounded that Donald Trump got the presidency? He wasn't supposed to. And especially in the news media, they were absolutely dumbfounded. How in the hell did that happen? Hillary Clinton was supposed to be our president. Well, just extrapolate that out. The Ventura's little in star chamber treatment. And, boy, I'm sure there was a lot of people within the agencies of the government when the election was declared, like, holy crap, what just happened? Now, understand that Donald Trump, I envision this guy being the captain of the RMS Titanic. It's taking on water. Man, there's so many leaks, you can't stop them. You know you're going down. So who was in there to help? Well, Mr. Comey was there, and he played his little part. We had the fiasco with Obama's Attorney General. But look at the ex-governors that he has right next to him. One comes to mind, Mike Pence. Now, you and I both thought when he picked Mike Pence, governor of Indiana, as vice president, what did I say? It should have been somebody like Ron Paul. It should have been the antithesis to the bully boys in Washington, D.C., but that's not who he picked. And my response at the time was, well, maybe he picked Pence because that would make Republicans in the Republican Party, the other crime syndicate in Washington, D.C., more comfortable with Donald Trump because he picked Mike Pence. But wait a minute. Let's step back here a second and digress. If Jesse Ventura is right, and they have an embed at staff level in every governor's office throughout the United States, just as a friendly look over your shoulder and, for benign purposes, and tell you when to duck when the stuff's coming at you. That would be the positive answer. But no, their job is collecting intel and information and sending it up to their bosses. And it dawned on me a couple of weeks ago. I saw a story on the web. Is Mike Pence the leak? But look how many people he's got around him that are ex-governors. And the old wheels started to slowly clank along. Now, this branches out, so let me backtrack a little bit here. Do you remember John Deutsch, CIA head, when he showed up in South Central L.A.? Over the accusation by Maxine Waters, probably the only honorable thing that this witch has ever done in her entire political career, when she got wind of the CIA running drugs into South Central L.A. Who shows up? It wasn't the deputy or the assistant or anything. No, the head of the CIA shows up in South Central at a press conference to answer questions. Well, one of the questioners, if you remember, was a guy by the name of Rupert. Oh, that's right. The guy committed suicide or was Arkancided back in 2014. Well, guess what he used to be? He used to be a detective in LAPD. So here's the guy who was asking the question of Deutsch, what about these drugs being run in there? Well, what happened to John Deutsch when he made that infamous appearance? Now, folks, generally this is the way this is handled. Plausible deniability. Or you just ignore it. You don't, the head Mac Daddy of an agency doesn't run to the anything to defend against anything. They just don't do it. I think Mr. Deutsch panicked, which let them know that, wait a minute, this guy is not the steadiest rock that we can find. Because a couple of months after he made his infamous appearance in South Central L.A., he was no longer the head of the CIA. Now, think back. I'm sorry, under Reagan, what was this whole Iran-Contra thing about? It was drugs for guns. Whoops. Drugs for guns, really? They don't do that. What happened to the Obama administration when Hillary Clinton was in there? And remember Fast and Furious? With the idea that, well, we plant certain weapons, then we can track them? Now, I've got an and let that thought, don't dispose of that thought. Let that stick in your head for a few minutes. I want to get around to this violence in Chicago and why that just keeps happening with the tightest gun rules of any city in the nation. They're killing each other at a record pace. With no gun stores, by the way, in Chicago City proper. And the criminals can't buy guns in the first place, so where are they coming from? Well, hang on. We'll answer that question here in a minute. So, let's come up currently. Chicago, murder capital of the world. Toughest gun laws in the country, but people are still getting guns, running around the streets, just killing each other. Now, Rahm Emanuel being the chief of staff for Barack Obama. Now, envision this, folks. You're chief of staff for the President of the United States. Now, you've got more perks and more benefits and more stuff than you can ever shake a stick at. Half of probably we don't even know about. You could order a bale of cocaine or a gaggle of hookers, if you so desired. That's part of the political perks in D.C. Or little boys, if you're so inclined. But Rahm Emanuel walks out of that post, and he becomes the mayor of Chicago. Now, Chicago has been a political hotbed for a number of years. I'm not going to eat up the airtime here by going through the complete litany of the corruption in Chicago. But a corrupt little area it certainly is. So Rahm Emanuel shows up to be the great mayor of Chicago, and all of a sudden the death rate just keeps climbing. And the cops keep confiscating weapons, but as soon as they confiscate it, there's new guns hitting the street. Well, the question is where in the hell are these guns coming from? Oh, well, let me see here. Where might they be coming from? Now, do me a favor, Mike. Pull that story up. I had it on my site here, but I've got... it's the one with the AR-15, the little... Yeah, that one. With a picture of an AR-15, or in this case, 16. Keep going. Keep going. There you go. You just passed it. Open it up. Now, here's a guy that's now living in Las Vegas. And he was, and do me a favor, copy the URL and send it over my caller screen because I want to read in the body of that story. But this is what an ex-hood rat, I guess you could call him, from Chicago. And this is what he's saying about the guns they're hitting Chicago. Just a never-ending stream of guns. Mike, I believe this guy, by the way. And you notice there's no expletives here. He cleaned up his act. He got his records expunged. He's trying to live the good life. And I believe every word that this man says. Go ahead and play it.
In Chicago, man. I'm from Chicago. Born and raised there. I ran those streets of Chicago and changed my life. But I want to kind of make people aware of some things that you don't know, because you never really been out there, then you wouldn't know it. And it's going to be hard to believe, but myself, for a fact, and several others that I ran with know this to be the truth. Growing up in Chicago in the early 90s, this same situation was happening. I've been in Chicago where a person came into my house and knocked on the door to come and get me early in the morning, 6:30 in the morning, and said, come with me, man. It's a crate of guns in the alley. And I got up and ran out there, and sure enough, there was a crate of guns. And during that time when we in it, you're not thinking about where did the guns just come from. You know, you never think about that type of stuff, like where did the guns come from and why are they here? But now that I'm older, I can kind of tell you that it's a diabolical plot. Nothing is stopped. The guns are still there. The guns are still being placed in these different strategic communities. It's a plan. It's not out in Bridgeview. It's not out in, Westmount. They're putting it in the hundreds for sure. Yeah, they're putting it on 55th. They're putting it in Inglewood. 6:30 in the morning while older people that's at work, you sleep. You're not outside. So, you got the streetwalkers and the people that's out, they hustling and they out all types of day. And yeah, they're the ones that's going to run across them. And who would go and tell the police? I never went to go tell the police when we found some guns. That don't even make sense. Why would you go tell the police? So people are wondering why so much violence. Think about it.
Okay, hold that video. We'll take the break here. The 1 and the 2 and the 3. No, it's not your Lawrence Well collar. All right, Mike, finish the rest of that video, and then we're going to move on here, folks. This is all starting to coalesce in Johnny when he's striking up the band here. Go ahead.
You think about this. Okay, the police are locking people up constantly in Chicago every single day. They're taking guns off the street every single day, every day. So how is it that all of these guns just keep appearing? Where are all the guns coming from? Nobody's going to the gun store buying these guns. So where are all these guns? Now, this is another part that you don't know. I was so used to having exotic guns that I thought that was the norm. You understand what I'm saying? I'm saying far as, I don't know if are you familiar with guns, but a fully automatic handgun is almost impossible to get. You know what I'm saying? A fully automatic assault rifle, that's not common. It may sound common, but that's not common. A Uzi that's fully automatic, that's not common. So I was so used to having everything in the area that I knew of was fully. It shot fully automatic, fully. So me being 17 and 18 and in my 20s, I was so naive that I believed that's how all guns was. I seen so many different exotic guns on the street running around in different areas with the guys just running around. I thought that was the norm. So now I'm an older gentleman. I'm out here, I switch my life around. I'm living right, So now I cleared my name up and got my record sealed. And I'm going to the gun shop now. I'm going to the shooting range, shooting like I'm supposed to. And I go into gun stores and I'm asking for certain guns and they looking at me like I'm crazy. Like I made that gun up. These are guns that I've seen several times in different areas that the gun stores saying, how would that be on the street? That's something that you would have to get specialized, customized. You see what I'm saying? But these guns are on the streets of Chicago. And my point to you is, yeah, we can't try to make an excuse for the kids out there shooting. And it ain't all kids, but we can't make an excuse. But I want you to look at the bigger picture. Where are they getting the guns from? It's not one or two areas. It's not one or two areas. It's everywhere. In the urban community is what I'm telling you. They're not dropping them out there in Hillcrest. They're not going to be out there. You check in them hundreds. You check on the low end. You check in the heart of the city, in the inner city. That's where they're dropping all the guns at. That's where all the killings is happening at. That's why a lot of innocent people are getting shot, stuff like that. Because of these guns. They got guns that they can't control. They shooting these guns, letting off, man, 100 shots, man, in 30 seconds. These guns are not being bought. They don't have no gun license to buy these guns. So where are they getting the guns from? That's the question. I'm telling you right now. They've been dropping the guns off in crates for years. They've been doing it. I seen it twice in my lifetime. I seen it in 1990, and then I seen it again in 1999. I seen it with my own eyes. You can believe it or not, but that's the honest to God truth. I went out, I seen the guns in the crate myself, and it went out through the whole area. Everybody got this one, grab that one. Let me get that one. I grabbed it. Everybody got them. And that's what they keep doing. That's how the guns keep getting on the streets. That's why the wars don't stop. You see what I'm saying? That's the part that people got to focus on. The gun control, how you gonna control something if you study putting it down there? That's propaganda when they saying this gun control, or we lobbying for gun control. You're not trying to control nothing when you study putting guns out there. They giving it to them. Now they want to give them the guns so they can catch them with the guns. Either they gonna kill somebody with the gun, then they get to lock them up, or they catch them with the gun and they get to lock them up. Either way, it's lose, 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 lose. You see what I'm saying? It's a business for them. It's a business. You know what I'm saying? It's like me wanting to sell a drug, but I got to get you hooked first. It's a business for them. So the more people that they can catch with guns, or the more people that commit crimes with guns, they get to lock them up. To them, it's just a number. They don't care. They don't care who it is. But it's more of the African community that's we're the victims. And I hate that everything boils down to race and all of that. I'm not a racist, but the truth is the truth. And I'm just telling it how it is. You know what I'm saying? I go to Chicago all the time. But if I go out to Westmount, Illinois, where one of my good white friends live, and I go with him, it's a different community. It's a different community. Ain't nobody running around with no guns. Ain't nobody doing nothing. I go out there, I feel safe. As soon as I go where I grew up at, I'm not getting out the car without no gun, because I don't trust nobody, because everybody around here got a gun. Everybody got a gun. You hear that part? That's the part that matters. Everybody got a gun, from the 14-year-old on up. Everybody got one. They ain't even doing nothing with it. They just got one. Well, how do everybody got all these guns? Where they come from? Right back to that again. That's what I'm trying to tell you. The guns are being deliberately placed, strategically placed in certain communities to target certain individuals.
Go ahead, Mike. Stop. Well, okay, there's another addition to this. You introduce drugs. Free flow of drugs. Nobody confined to dealers. Nobody's doing the detective work. Remember how they used to do the detective work? They'd bust somebody and go, okay, you know what? We're going to leave you go. But before you go, you got to tell me who you're getting it from. Now they want them to be confidential informants, and if they don't have any information, they'll give them bogus information. People get raided. Unnecessarily, people get killed. That happens. Good police work. You understand. But now you have an economic reason pushing the drugs into the hood with the gangs, and they're all there with their gang stuff in our territory, and, It becomes a protected, violent situation. Now, if you remember, and I've told this story, this was one of my wake-up calls years and years and years ago. All of a sudden on C-SPAN, there was a special news conference, and it was held by Lloyd Bentsen, Treasury Secretary, Janet Reno. She was the Attorney General at the time. There was Mr. Al Gore there. That was Clinton's. Clinton didn't show up, but Al certainly didn't. He was there. And, it was this explanation as to what we're going to do with the city of Chicago. Well, what we're going to do is, we're going to go into the housing developments that are funded by the federal government, and at least we have the right to go in there and make those places safe. And we're going to do things like make sure that the light bulbs aren't burned out in the stairways, and we're going to be going to the apartments checking for guns, just to keep everybody safe. We don't want anybody in there, with the illegal guns. But then they expanded further. They said, it may be necessary to do block to block, house to house, cordon off blocks, and go to house searches and seizure. Now think about this. Oh, by the way, this is when Al Gore took the political opportunity to hold up a national ID card, and he used these exact words. You will not be able to buy or sell unless you have the card. Straight out of the Bible, mark of the beast. That was the icing on the cake. But they were premature in this. They didn't cook up a grand enough scenario that people would actually buy the feds going into neighborhoods. Not housing developments, mind you, not just that, but into neighborhoods, cordoning off and going house to house on fishing expeditions to grab illegal weapons. So fast forward, I don't know, it's been 25 years now. About that, 24, 25 years. Now we've got a problem in Chicago. The death toll just keeps rising. These young, uneducated inner city boys are just out there with these weapons, just shooting each other willy-nilly. And you notice, there are no microphones or cameras rolling. Nobody is grabbing Rahm Emanuel by the scruff of his neck to do impromptu news conferences or, excuse me, Mr. Mayor, we got a few questions for you. None of that is going on. And so, here's the pressure from above, pressure from below, or the Hegelian dialectic, thesis, antithesis, or synthesis. They create the problem, demonstrate how bad it is. Hey, we're going to ride in with the solution. Heretofore, maybe nobody bought it, but right now it's just so extraordinary, we got to take extreme measures. Trump, a couple of weeks ago, was indicating that he was going to send the federales in to take care of the crime problem and the gun problem in Chicago. But wait a minute. Let's go back to the question here. Crated guns and original crates for shipment? Now, would gun runners, you know what those are? Those are the people that obtain weapons and sell them on the black markets or sell weapons to people that really shouldn't have them. And they're finding just crate after crate after crate of guns in Chicago, brand new, still with a protective cosmoline on it, if you will, just fresh in the wrapper, ready for the plucking. But any self-respecting gun runner wouldn't just give away guns, would they? They just wouldn't drop them by the crates and back alleys and spaces that aren't being watched by cameras. So you add the guns to the gangs and the drugs, and and you got a whole lot of damn dead people in Chicago. Now, the accompanying story with the young man that got the hell out of Chicago, got out of the cultural deficient area, I almost said it, the butthole of the earth, Chicago. And he gets out and he goes to L.A., straightens himself around, and upon reflection, seeing from afar that the murdering is still going on in Chicago, and he starts to recall that the guns that just kept showing up. Well, there's a well-documented history of the government, our government, supplying weapons and arms to both friends and foe for political purposes and for profit. In addition to publicly known global arms deal to U.S. political allies like Israel and Saudi Arabia, no deal too big and no deal too small. The revelations about the rise of ISIS indicate that U.S. arms and military trainees have been a critical factor in the rise of the terror group. By the way, Mike, don't let me forget what Vladimir Putin has said about the arms running and training that the U.S. government has been doing. And he got everybody's attention on this one. But excuse me for digressing. From 2006 to 2011, the U.S. Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and let me include explosives, ran a gun smuggling operation into Mexico to ostensibly dismantle Mexican drug gangs. Now let me stop here. Down in Mexico, they had a zillion and one drug gangs. I mean, they really did. And they were pretty sloppy on how they operated. They would get into gun battles in unimportant areas, and mom and dad and children are being shipped off to the morgue because, well, they just wanted to control the area. These guys were pretty sloppy, pretty messy. You know, they do, unwholesome things like the snitches that were trying to go to the police saying, get these gun-wielding drug dealers out of our town. These are the people that their heads would be cut off and put on bus stops out on the public streets. Remember the photos that we ran? Hell, I got a call. What the hell was it from, Mike? Do you remember? Was it CNN? They wanted to know, where in the hell are you getting those pictures? It was probably the implant CIA over at CNN, the Communist News Network, that was making the inquiry. I said, what the hell do you care? And why should I tell you what my source is? They promptly went away. But they were sloppy. You know who weren't sloppy? The MS-13 gangs. Oh, these were some hardened, hard-bitten, almost subhuman. All of a sudden, they're coming across our border. They're setting up shops in our major cities for distribution of drugs. And, will they join this gang or start that gang? Most people are only familiar with the Crips and the Bloods and this, that, and no. There's much more than that. You got to have somebody at the top of this criminal cabal taking charge of the criminality and the drugs and the guns and every damn thing else, and the payoffs, if necessary, or the elimination of somebody, if necessary. Just keep that in mind as I'm going through this. Now, as I said, the smuggling operation, ostensibly to dismantle Mexican drug gangs, accomplishing the precise opposite. However, in what has affectionately become known as Fast and Furious, further back in time, we have a covert operations like old Ali North's Iran-Contra scandal of the mid-'80s, and America's involvement in arming rebels in Central America to destabilize uncooperative governments. Sound like Syria to you? Sure as hell sounds like Syria to me. Sound like Libya? Sure as hell sounds it like me. Oh, well, the list goes on. Furthermore, it's alleged that the CIA, the DEA, and other government agencies have been involved for decades in the destruction of American communities by covertly shipping in drugs. Former DEA agent Sully Castile has been persecuted by the U.S. government for seeking accountability of George Bush, old HW, and his administration for drug smuggling into the U.S. He would know as he was directly involved in the operations himself. Former L.A. police narcotics officer Michael Rupert alleged in the mid-1990s that the CIA was directly involved in running drugs throughout the United States. Corroborating information presented in his book, Dark Alliance, by investigative journalist Gary Webb, whose death, by the way, in 1994 by 2 gunshot wounds to the head. And, of course, that was deemed a suicide. And, by the way, Michael Rupert committed suicide in 2014. And I said at the time, that was 3 years ago when that happened, I said, flip the coin. I'm really not sure about this one. It could have been that he was Arkancided, or he did commit suicide. But this is what he said to Director Deutsch when he showed up in South Central L.A. He said, "I will tell you, Director Deutsch, emphatically and without equivocation, that the agency has dealt drugs throughout this country for a long time." Freeway Ricky Ross was California's most successful drug kingpin during the explosion of crack-epidemic in the 1980s. Now remember me saying to you, you got the distribution, you got the gangs there. Okay, then you introduce profitability to this, and then they got the territories they've got to protect. And how are they going to protect them? With the guns. Where are they getting the guns? They're not going to the gun store to buy them. Let's take this break. We'll come back. You know, you almost don't want to believe your government's capable of doing this. Think about this. Donald Trump, they didn't see him coming. And who are the enemies? He needs a poll vote to jump over the piles of bodies that are his enemies. We'll be back. So, talking about Freeway Ricky Ross, most successful drug kingpin during the explosion of crack epidemic in the 1980s, later implicated in the CIA as a source for cocaine. Presidents Reagan, Bush, Sr., Billy Clinton are all implicated in these revelations of drug running in the U.S. during the 80s and 90s in Mena, Arkansas, which also links the Arkansas State Police to smuggling culminating in the suspicious murder of Vince Foster. He committed suicide too, don't you know? Again, the list goes on and on. However, with the recent rise of the violence in Chicago involving over 3,000 shooting victims in 2016, and that was from January 1st to September 13th, 3,000 shootings, just in that period. It appears that another case of U.S.-sponsored gun smuggling and intentional destruction of inner-city communities may be at play. In a publicly available video, testimony of ex-Chicago gang member, as you just heard, describes how crates of fully automatic firearms would regularly be found in alleyways and back streets of urban Chicago in the early hours of the morning, giving free illegal weapons to the gangs of Chi-Town, which is also now referred to as Chirac because it's a war zone. It refers to it as a diabolical plot, a plan affecting only low-income areas, pointing out that many of the firearms being found were Class 3 automatic weapons, which can only be purchased, folks, if you got a Class 3 license. Purchased at certain retailers under the intense federal scrutinies. Now, he notes that the criminals aren't allowed to buy these firearms in the first place, yet the guns are everywhere. So where did they come from? Well, Occam's razor, folks. Sometimes the simplest explanation is the best, and I do believe it is the correct one. Now take a look at what is going on in this country today. Politically, well, nobody can get over the fact that Donald Trump actually got elected president last November, can they? And to this day, what are we here, July? What, seven months after this guy got elected? MSNBC, NBC, ABC, CBS, they just can't get over the fact that President Donald Trump is the president. And I'm sure it's the CIA-sponsored smear campaign with a connection with the Russians. Because they were over there flipping the government in the capital of Ukraine, Kiev, to put their own style of gangster in there. Oops. Now, does it stand to reason why our borders were not sealed? Donald Trump didn't have to build a damn wall. All they had to do is give the funding and the okay to the Border Patrol to say, hey, look, this is your job. Here's job one for you, and you don't work for Ford. Here's job one. Stop the illegals from coming over the border. Simultaneously, in this country, and especially here in Texas, we reported on it weeks ago, that the governor finally said, you know what, sanctuary cities, people keep doing this, The enablers, we don't give a crap if you're the police chief. We don't care if you're city council. We don't care if you're the mayor. You harbor and protect the illegals, you're breaking the law, and you will be subject to arrest. All of a sudden here, folks, I'm not kidding you, here in Texas, here in Central Texas, the illegals have disappeared. We're back, second hour of the National Intel Report. Are we still on air, or is the CIA on its way? I'm your host, John Stadtmiller. It's 19th day of July, 2017. And I spent the last hour with a very plausible explanation as to why everything is just so much out of control that there's another thing that needs to be considered here. The other illegal and unconstitutional thing that they did with melding the military with the police everywhere, any town, USA. This was no accident that the government decided to start, distributing military hardware to cop shops across the United States. I think things went a little bit awry because that equipment was supposed to be delivered for, chaotic situation that never took place. I want you to take note of something else. Back in the 90s, I was involved in creating militias around this country. But then I had an epiphany. I'm going about this the wrong way. The thought was that Billy Clinton and the boys were going to start going after the guns, going to start confiscating, maybe doing house-to-house searches and seizures for weapons. And generally speaking, the American public here knows that, those are your weapons of liberty. You're not an easy target if you're disarmed. Well, you are an easy target, but not so easy if you have the ability to maybe plink back at them. So the militias started forming, and I thought about this, and I thought, wait a minute, this is the wrong approach. This is one of my major motivations for getting into doing news programming, to try to make sense of the chaos that's out there, to try to educate people as to what the Constitution is and what the real law is. And now we're into the false flags and murdering people, and you just have to have that need out there, don't you? Well, like every other developed and industrialized country around the world, what do they got? No guns? What do they got? National health care. What do they got? They got police climbing up their butts at any given turn. None of which has happened here in this country. We've come close. National health care. Not going to have that. Latest word on that? Well, we're just going to pass the repeal thing, and we'll take a couple of years in trying to institute another program. Well, good luck with that, Chuck. Because we'll be spending our time quietly on the phone to our Congress critters and our senator asshats in Washington, D.C. going, you think you're going to get another term? Yeah, go ahead and try to construct national health care, saying that's the fix to the country that had the best medical care in the first place. Yeah, go fly a frickin' kite. They've gotten pretty much the message, because there's some people on Capitol Hill that said, you know what? We've repeatedly said no. Can you hear us now? Hell no. This is what was expressed by the American people time and time again over this last election cycle. We're sick of this stuff. You people can't even run a single-payer health scam like you've got set up. It's called the VA administration. And supposedly their care for the people that they're putting on the line, the only thing they really own in this life is their own life. Everything else is rented. The only thing you truly own is your own life. And look how well they've been taken care of, doing the dastardly dirty work and deeds of overthrowing governments and shooting innocent and bombing innocent people. For what? For our security? Well, here comes the other part of this. Jerry Day, ex-Marine, runs a website, freedomtaking.com. Now, if you want to look this up, you got to spell this out in caps. Well, the first letters of each word. Freedom, capital F, lowercase. Capital T, put a space in there, by the way. If you don't put a space, you don't go to the site. Freedom, capital F, REEDOM. Space, taking, capital T, AKING.com. Put it in that way, you'll go to his website, freedomtaker.com. This is what Jerry Day had to say, and this is what I've been saying over the last several weeks, and I just saw this video today. If you heard the program yesterday, I was kind of amazed at the parallels, never having spoken to this woman before, but DV Kid. The number one thing that woke her up was the banker bastards and the scam that they're pulling. Now here comes an ex-Marine. Listen to his explanations. Mike? Pot up? I'm sorry, am I disturbing you? No, go back to sleep. It's okay.
What if I went into your neighbor's yard, shot their dog, and told them that you hired me to do that? If you live in the United States, that is what your government is doing to you right now. They're going into country after country. While the mainstream press is strangely silent, they're going to Afghanistan, Iraq, Yemen, Syria, Pakistan, Turkey, Libya, and others. They're simply bombing whatever they want to bomb, killing whoever they want to kill, destroying whatever they choose to destroy without legal grounds, without the agreement of other nations, in blatant violations of international treaties back as far as Geneva Convention. We are the new global villain. And your flag, your face, is becoming the symbol for those campaigns. As Germany was in 1939, America is today, bringing unprovoked horror and death to a host of countries, countless communities, where no threat of any kind to our nation has been demonstrated in any public way. Our military, our government, that corporate deep state that the mainstream media seems to be unable to even speak of, are committing those acts of war, actually war crimes, in your name. They have shot your neighbor's dog, and it looks like you are okay with that. Just as the German people cheered for Hitler, Americans are thinking that these...
Now, let me stop and digress. This is the only part of this presentation, because I'm sure the guy figured, well, people will get that if I use Nazi Germany. Do you remember the video I played from the rabbi that came out and said that, you know what, Mein Kampf was the truth? And it wasn't Hitler that was necessarily against the Jews. He was against the communists and the socialists. Guess what they just happened to be? The Jews in Germany, controlling the information, controlling the money. Just wanted to interject that. Sorry, my Marine friend.
Inexcusable actions are somehow going to make them safe, when the opposite is absolutely guaranteed. By these endless atrocities, our military is not only inviting more and more terrorism, they are causing Russia and China and all their allies to align against us, just as the world aligned against Germany and Japan in World War II. Tragic history has shown us that it was not just the German government and leaders who were taken down. Common German people were humiliated, starved, tortured, and killed after World War II. The German people themselves, men, women, and children, were blamed and punished for what their elected leaders had done. If you are not on the record opposing the United States global tyranny and wholesale slaughter of innocent foreigners on their own soil, you are likely to become a target yourself sometime in the future. Do you look like an American? Imagine what would happen if you set foot in a Muslim country which has been bombed or invaded by our military, when someone has pulled their dead children out of their crumbled masonry houses. How do you think those people will treat you if they ever come face to face with you? Any war is bad enough, but the kind of war that the United States is conducting is the worst of the worst. One-sided bullying, unprovoked invasion, exploitation of other countries' resources under the pretense of weaponized political crusades against randomly selected targets. Innocent populations losing their homes, their lives, their loved ones, and many of them having no idea why it is even happening. There's no amount of propaganda, diplomacy or foreign aid that can come close to repairing what our military is doing and has done. There is no rationalization which can reasonably be put forward to claim that our young soldiers are dying and losing their limbs for any good cause. Are we also brainwashed that we can't even utter an anti-war opinion while this is going on? The Confederate flag is being banned everywhere in our country because, to many, it represents slavery, bigotry, and injustice. The Nazi flag is a symbol of genocide. What does the American flag represent to the rest of the world now that we have flown that flag, as we have invaded their countries, destroyed their homes, and killed their friends and loved ones? How will our flag be regarded by the world from now on? You will see a time when simply flying that flag that you are so proud of will make you a target by the people who have already been visited by our military, our corporate-controlled deep state, our mercenary killers who have plundered and destroyed their countries, their lives, their cultures and societies, while those invaders flew that flag you love so much. Alone, I cannot stop our military, our Congress, our president, and the unaccountable deep state from invading these countries. That is why I am bringing this message out, in the hope that all Americans will wake up and see themselves as the rest of the world sees us. You and I will be blamed. We will be held accountable. We will be targets for revenge, hate, and retribution. You and I, if we don't get major anti-war and anti-imperialism movements going in the United States, movements that are powerful enough to move the mountain of globalist, imperialist greed and violence by our government. When the world comes to our doorstep looking for payback, looking for justice, at least I can point to this video I made. What will you be able to point to that you did? If we don't get together in large numbers and do large things that cause large changes in our national policies and conduct, we do not have a very bright future.
Well, and just to make sure that there's further disharmony, let's just bring them into the country. And let's not vet them. Now, are all Muslims seeking asylum in Europe want to come to the United States? Are these people all jihadists? Of course they're not. But in that massive humanity that's being injected into other cultures and other countries around the world, what a convenient thing that you would have. You would then have the mechanism to deliver chaos and death and rape and murder and cutting off of heads and all this other crap. While Angela Merkel, that's right, when the wall fell and she came over from East Germany, the good communist she was, what in the hell has happened to the German people? This wench is running things, and she just came out recently and said, if you think I'm going to stop this invasion, or I'm sorry, the humanitarian aid to these poor people coming into Germany, you're wrong. She's going to continue it. What a good little communist she really is. Let me take a break here, go to the phones. George in Texas. Hello, George.
How you doing, John?
Hi.
You know, the thing is, I was sitting there reading about when they first formed the CIA. There was a lot of concerns about what would happen forming this kind of organization. And believe me, everything they said has come to fruition. The CIA has become a law unto itself, unaccountable to the federal government.
That's right. Unaccountable to anybody. Running covert operations, destabilizing, causing the deaths of millions. But let me stop you, George, because I was going to bring this up, and I'm glad that you mentioned this, because it used to be the OSS. That was during World War II. They needed intelligence. Okay, great. Well, World War II ended, but wait a minute. The government never does away with an entity it creates. It just morphs it into something else. Well, let's turn it into the Central Intelligence Agency, because after all, don't countries have to have real-time intelligence to make sound and good decisions to protect the American people? Think of this. The previous president to John F. Kennedy, Eisenhower, his I'm out of here message to the country, watch out for the military-industrial complex. Here Kennedy comes strolling into the Oval Office, and he says, you know what? I'm going to spread the CIA to the four winds. 1,000 pieces, blown away. And what happens to him? He gets blown away. The only plausible explanation that I could see to pull off an operation of November 22nd, 1963, was a direct involvement of the CIA. What sense that makes that they would be in there and have their dirty little mitts in there, because here was the guy that wanted to bust them up.
Well, Kennedy talked about them sacred cows like General Dulles.
Yes.
All these people. And the thing is, we got too many sacred cows now. And the thing is, like I say, the CIA, I didn't think, we ought to use the asset forfeiture laws to sort of just confiscate the CIA and shut it down.
Well, and thank you for mentioning that. What did the new Attorney General, Jeff Sessions, do? Well, he just opened up a new round of confiscation of property from, just people just doing illegal things, and we're going to confiscate their assets. Good going, Jeff Sessions, you asshat.
You know what I personally say? I'm personally calling for Donald Trump to fire Sessions. I'd rather have a Bob Barr as an Attorney General, not a Jeff Sessions.
I would much rather open up the damn phone book with some rookie lawyer that is untainted. I would much rather have somebody that has a rudimentary understanding of law and procedure and put him in the Attorney General's office. Anything else, George?
Well, the thing is about Chicago, about with the guns. If Donald Trump's ever going to send the federal rallies in to go, the federals in to sort of alleviate the crime of Chicago, why don't you say, okay, we're going to have the free M14, when the government gives away, they got free M14 and or a handgun, and find all the law-abiding citizens has a criminal crime, and give them a free gun with ammunition. That will stop the crime real quick.
Yeah, and then you would really have an excuse because people would be screaming at the top of their lungs. See, the snowflakes in this country don't believe in guns, but they don't understand, and they have not been educated as to what firearms are really for. Billy Boys spent a long time trying to explain to people, I hunt. I got a shotgun. I use that for sporting purposes. Unless you consider killing people to preserve your freedom and liberty, unless you consider that a sporting act, I would say that it isn't. Oh, and by the way, one other point that I forgot to make out of all this. The only reason that militias in this country have not been declared wholesale of being terrorist organizations, they can't get around this one. Because we're out there for the Republic, for law and order, for the Constitution, for all the things that gave people the opportunity to enrich themselves and by way of extension, enriching the entire country, having employment, having freedom and liberty and the ability to contract and just do business and enjoy the fruits of our own labors. I mean, they couldn't do a damn thing, really. They couldn't do a damn thing, really, with the Malheur thing except to try to demonize it a little bit, but enough of the information had already gone out as to what these people were doing. They're going, wait a minute, federal government, you got to stop this land grab stuff. Whose land is it anyhow? Planned, methodical, constant. From every angle, political, culture, economy, you name it, they're hard at it. The world can't stand for us to stand, folks. We must fall. We must. George in Texas, any last thoughts here? And I got to keep moving.
Well, John, I just got one thing. One of my friends who knows Spanish was listening on Spanish-speaking talk radio, and one of the reasons why some illegal aliens are going back. I mean, they were in Chicago, they were around Minneapolis, around New York, and
they're
Jersey.
everywhere.
Well, they're getting displaced by them, and they're getting attacked too because they can't have their cerveza, they can't have their pork fajitas and all that stuff, and they're getting attacked. That's not being put in the news, so they're heading back to Mexico because at least Mexican government won't let these idiots in. So I think they're feeling like they're safer back in Mexico.
No,
because the cops-
George, fajitas aside here, okay? The real reason is the word is out on the street. You get pulled over. You have an inquisitive cop that happens to ask you, let me see your papers. Are you a citizen here? If not, let me see your visa. Let me see your permission papers. They're being arrested and held and being turned over to ICE and deported. That's the major reason. That's why this whole Trump wall, he still wants to build his wall. I don't know if he really has to do that because the traffic is down over 70% of illegals trying to come into this country. And just not stopping the influx into the country, it's the outgo. It's the people that are getting their hat and getting the hell out thinking, well, it's better in Mexico than sitting in a damn jail.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
What did I say? Thank you, John.
Thank you, George. Is this Calm Tom or... No, it's not Calm Tom. Okay, Tom in Florida. Tom.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Well, are you on a speakerphone?
Yeah, hold on a second.
Yeah, well, and again, folks, for the 15th millionth time on this program, don't talk to me through a speakerphone. Please, Tom, go ahead.
My phone.
I don't know.
No,
you called me, remember? Go ahead, Tom.
Hello? Can I get a hold of you?
Yeah, I'm here, Tom. I'll be here for the next 34 minutes.
Take it off speaker. What happened there?
I don't know. Figure it out, Tom. Let me go to Mark.
Hello, John? You hear
Yes. Oh, yeah. There you go.
Okay, John. Sorry about that. What I want to say is this. Hey, John, when's the last time you talked to Gerald Celente, and what does he think about the deep state? I wonder if you can have a show with Gerald anytime, and him talking about the deep state and...
I don't know.
the deep state.
Tom, I don't know where you've been, but at the top of the last hour, I said that Gerald Celente is going to be my guest tomorrow.
Oh, okay, great. Okay, I missed the first few minutes. But
Okay.
Yeah, it's funny, John, that I thought that because I was listening to Michelle Malkin today, and she was talking about this guy, Crystal, and this guy, William Crystal's actually saying he'd rather have the deep state or Hillary than Donald Trump as president. This guy's supposed to be like a Republican operative or whatever, and this guy, Crystal, and then he's praising Chucky Schmucky Schumer.
Yeah, he's a neocon.
No wonder.
They're crossing the lines because things aren't going according to plan. Bill Kristol and his gaggle have always been the deep state, false conservative neocon. They're starting to come out and they're slathering. I mean, it's the most remarkable thing to sit and watch because everybody's finding out about the scams and the schemes and everything else going around, and they're out on television losing their minds in front of God and all his people.
Yeah, well, it was really amazing hearing her today on this show. I was listening to you, the car show. But what's perplexing, the last caller, George, he was talking about CIA. You guys were talking about CIA. I wonder how many, are those CIA people, are any Christians in the CIA, or who are they working for? Another country or something?
I don't know, Tom. Jeez.
Because, you talk about the CIA.
I don't know. I don't know. By what rule of what God is it that you go in and effectual destabilization of governments and funding the bad guys and teaching them how to blow stuff up and how to divide countries where millions of people are killed? I don't know. Do you think they're Christian?
No, John, but that's the point. Look at John F. Kennedy. He was a Catholic, and he ended up getting murdered. So the point is, these people are, I don't know if they're atheists or what.
Tom, you're way off the mark here. You're way off the mark.
Well, Kennedy was the last Catholic we had, wasn't he?
I don't know, but it didn't have anything to do with the Pope in Rome. It had to do with he wanted to blow away the CIA.
Well, I agree with you, John. I totally agree with that. And I also agree that he was trying...
I am not in a particular mood today to entertain silliness or stupidity, okay? There's some certain rules here when you call in to talk radio. Do not use a speakerphone. Number 2, know how to operate your phone other than using the speaker. Take crib notes. What you want to talk about, what you want to relay. Don't get on and then hopscotch and jump off in 15 different directions. I don't know where the hell you're going, and it reminds me of a chicken with its head cut off. Well, its eyes are still in its head, but it's not attached to the body, but that doesn't stop the chicken from going everywhere and anywhere. It still goes. Basic rules, folks. Basic rules. Mike in Alaska. Hello, Mike.
Hi, John.
Hi.
I'm in a similar mood today, a little bit cynical.
A little? If you're not,
Well-
then you're dead.
I did get a laugh. It may have been a bit at your expense, but
That's okay.
Sometimes-
I've been laughed at before. Just don't laugh at me. It's okay if you laugh near me, but not at me. It's all right.
we just have to roll with it. I will stay on the straight and narrow here. I want to address that video, Jerry Day,
Mm-hmm.
Minivan Jack. That's who he is on YouTube.
Okay.
And I like what he's saying. As a traveler myself, I slightly disagree, and here's why. When I travel, people actually talk to me. They want to know what's going on in this country. What the heck is going on? So the way I watched that video on your website and saw him present it was, we got to get our act together because a German might say something mean to you because you're from Texas and that's part of the U.S. and things are crazy over there. And I've found in my experience that actually, whether we're talking Asia or Eastern Europe, people are like, hey, John, they basically want to tune into your program and figure out what is enslaving us, what's going on, because they're not really in a different boat. They may not be the troops on the ground. Ireland is not in Afghanistan.
But to be fair to the ex-Marine, he was talking specifically about the Middle East. That the American flag has been flying over there. We've been destabilizing governments, funding the people, gathering the groups up, funding them, agitating them, training them to bring down their respective governments. That's what the reference was in that video.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes more sense, and I don't have any experience in that part of the world. But I would just remind everyone, the founders really warned about trying to impress, for example, England or France or Germany. If you recall, when the French Revolution took off, we had a treaty of friendship, but they wanted to have an alliance. And the smart people who founded this country said, well, wait a second. We don't know we don't know if you're going to get crazy and have the first mini little communist revolution over here or not. We want to trade with you. We want to build things and ship them over. And and if you want to help us, liberty, the pursuit of liberty, sure, let's work together. But on the East Coast, this kind of blue blood thing of wanting to be liked. Are you running this network to be liked, John, or to get the truth out?
No, it could actually be used by the CIA as a torture mechanism. Tying somebody down, pumping them up on amphetamines, and then putting the headphones on them with a constant 24-hour national intel report turned up at an uncomfortable level in their ears. That could be used as torture as well.
John, they already have that rap music coming out of Hollywood. But just food for thought there that he's on the right track, but we have so much to be angry about in these topics domestically. Like, hey, why is my money going to this? Hey, why are there gun crates everywhere?
Yeah,
where are the drugs coming from?
And you're asking the questions of the people that are not interested in answering the questions because it would reveal too much by way of an honest answer. We've got the cabal, the criminal cabal running this country. And for people to keep expecting them to give you an honest answer when an earnest question is put to them is literally the definition of insanity.
And, it's interesting to note how much of viewership I know that comes up over at the guys across town there is that, oh, man, a third of our viewership is international. How could we send them some nutraceuticals or whatever they're selling? But the point is that those people are tuning into Texas online radio stations to figure out what's going on, including in their backyard. So the fight is here, and when I travel, now I have not, you're right, I have not, this is not Middle East, But even Far East, Asia, they're not really involved in the Middle East conflicts. They're just like, hey, what's going on? They're not like, hey, let's get in a fist fight because you're from America and I'm really upset. They're upset, but they want to know what's going on.
Well, and they're finding out what's going on. I mean, and they got to wade through, if they're not listening to somebody to decipher and bring up the major points of their opinion or their experiences as to what is actually going on. This is what DB Kidd said yesterday. We've got information. We used to have a straw for information. Remember? The computers, you had to wait 10 minutes for a picture to download. Now we're super fast speed. We've got information. We got the fire hose plugged directly into our brain now. And there is so much information, we're losing the ability to focus on a few things that fundamentally you change that, you start to change the landscape on other things. You start to change minds. You start to change the direction.
Right. The only tactic they have now is to kookify it. Is that a real word where you just come in and start talking about Mars children and things like that?
Well, and that's necessary because that's more of the noise, the white noise in your head to drive you absolutely insane.
Right.
UFOs and aliens. I've got time for that. The only aliens I know of are the illegals that are being run out of this damn country.
Just want to leave you with these two topics, the guns and the drugs. That's near and dear to me as far as, figuring out what's going on. So I just appreciate you bringing these topics up today.
Well, and it's important because, this is my ego does not need this. I don't have an insatiable ego. Here, pay attention to me and what I'm saying. I got a voice and listen to me. I could give a rat's nest if that's people's opinions or not. But the point is that we wade through all of this crap and we try to keep things on target. I mean, if you enjoy a fire hose up your butt and somebody turning it on full blast, go right ahead. But if you want somebody to wade through this and try to make sense of this and put it into cognitive, logical understandings and keep pointing people in the right directions rather than scattering like a million lemmings heading over the cliff. I mean, things are getting nasty. I knew this 20-some years ago, my involvement in the militias. And then it dawned on me, wait a minute, a trained monkey can shoot a gun. But you got to have people out there that the most important thing, the key is knowledge, not disinformation, not hyped crap, calm, logical, linear A, B, C, D. Let's walk down the line with this. And this is starting to coalesce in my little head. I'm starting to see how they're actually doing this and why it's been done the way it has been.
John, there's what you were doing there's nothing wrong with that, but from the perception angle, having a knowledgeable person show up at a city council meeting and start talking about these things versus just having someone who has survival skills and knows how to use a hunting knife and form a perimeter and shoot. I mean, it's all necessary, but you're training the real killers by just bringing up the topics before it goes to anything crazier. You know what I'm saying?
No, I didn't understand that.
Well,
rephrase.
Sure. The way I understood your story that you told about the militias is you had an epiphany to pivot from the physical to the knowledge base, to the radio, to saying, why don't we talk about these issues, Fed Reserve, et cetera, and what I'm saying is that's more potent, that's more lethal than anything that you can have in basically the pen is mightier than the sword is what I'm saying.
It depends on your point in your journey. At one time, I recognized that as the pivot point, and I realized that, wait a minute, we've got people out there that have a rudimentary understanding of the Constitution. Do they really understand their role as being a citizen of their state, respective state, and by extension their country? Do they understand? So let's walk through the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, and let's start putting things in their proper places so we can get a good perspective here. And that's been part of
John,
it as well. And that's why I said that the reason, and these are cooler heads, they've tried to instigate instances between federales and organized or unorganized militia, as we call them, which are completely legal and constitutional. The only reason they haven't been able to lower the boom in calling us a bunch of terrorists or potential terrorists out there is because we're the ones waving the real American flag. We're the ones that are for the republic, not the democracy for which it stands. We're the ones that want the rule of law, the peace, the liberty, what we used to have, along with sound money, nice people doing work, smiling, producing, and living a full life on this mortal coil before they have to shuffle off the damn thing. And I, for one, am tired of the instigated chaos and bullshit. I'm sorry, did I use that term? My apologies to people that are offended by that. Mike, thank you for your call.
Thank you.
Billy Bob can't say that word. My apologies. Andy in Texas. Hello, Andy.
Well, hey, John, how do you follow that? Way to go, brother. I love the way you express yourself.
Don't do that. Don't encourage me.
Okay, I'm sorry.
All right.
Hey, so, what we need to do is we need to alert the people, because a lot of people are running around out there. They don't have no idea how they're being controlled and stuff. So we need to give them a little history here. In 1913, when we sold our money to the Federal Reserve at interest, whatever, that was the beginning of control. So they started to control us there. In 1933 or so, in that area, they implemented Social Security. So now they got a Social Security number on you, and they tracked your butt along. And then they forced companies to accept the Social Security number, that they had to require it for their purchases and stuff like that. So now the number acquires to you in many different places. I'm surprised nobody's talking about maybe it showing up on the NASDAQ or something like that, because I'm sure they're betting on all of us to fail, and they got their little waivers. But anyway, that's a sidetrack. So then you go on, you got your driver's license, your birth certificate, all this stuff. None of this stuff is required to be here on this planet. Wait, how far have we gone to the point where we allowed these people to track us? Now we have cell phones. I've just ventured far beyond. There's much more I could mention about how they're tracking us. But so if you wonder how they're tracking us, how they're controlling us, well, it's by tracking us, because that's like 80% of the entire equation, is they need to know what you're up to so that they can control you. So here we are. What says you, John?
I don't know. You covered so much stuff, I lost you there, Andy. I lost you, man. What's the point? Just whittle that down and put that over succinctly so I can respond to it.
Okay, so there's a lot of people out there that don't know that they're being tracked and controlled. Okay? Even you and I to this day are still being tracked and controlled. If we have an ATM card, if we have anything, they know what we're up to. And by tracking and controlling us, or they control us by tracking us.
Yeah, but
simply because they know what we're up to.
How does that? Come on, man. How does that equate to control? Because they know what I do. I am aware that they are tracking me, and quite frankly, I don't give a crap. That kind of sets me apart from the people that don't know they're being tracked and traced, and don't even know enough to even care.
Well, but if they track and trace you, John, they know what you're going to do next or whatnot, and that's how you get these Amazons and all this other things that are popping up.
The algorithms and all that other stuff. Yeah, and the algorithm. Yeah, Andy, I get it. But what's the point here? Because they know they track
it. That people need to realize that we're not in an actual society that we created. People created this for us. We didn't create it.
And the reminders of what we are and how we got here have been systematically eliminated from the consciousness of its citizens by way of the school, by the propaganda, Hollywood, television, news media, you name it. They don't even know that they don't know. Here's the issue. They don't even know that they don't know anymore, Andy. They don't know. You just
nailed my point.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
All right. Appreciate it, Andy. Thank you. Yeah. Jim in Kansas. Hello, Jim.
I went to a lecture by Ray R. McGovern about 5 years ago, and he said that you should read the law that created the CIA that there's a loophole in there or something about the stuff that we hear about Langley, Virginia and stuff, and then other duties. And if you read the whole, it's just almost like a corporation can have a subsidiary that can just do that anything.
Ooh, you mean for and for other purposes?
And he read the law there, the complete title of the law that created this is all about the same time the Administrative Procedures Act and all that stuff came into being. And anyway, I took notes. I've got my notes, but not right in front of me. But you can go. I just wanted to. There's a real broad definition in that law about what it can do.
Yeah. Well, and strict adherence to the Constitution is real hard for these guys because it doesn't allow them enough latitude and freedom to do what they necessarily have to do. Of what they're being told is their scope of their job, and it's just absolutely insane. When people say that the CIA and their covert operations and their off-budget, black op budgets and this, that, and the other, this is how they're pulling this stuff off. And there is nobody, I mean, you have another agency out there called the FBI. They haven't noticed that the CIA has been running drugs and guns into this country to cause the chaos? Isn't that a federal offense? I don't care if they're federales themselves. Go arrest the asshats.
Right.
Go arrest them.
Ralph Winterwood says the Constitution has been thrown away a long time ago, and he gives a lot of evidence to support that.
Well, and we have done so on this program as well, and I don't give a damn. I don't give a damn what period and what century it was. We can go back to the instances that has caused this and brought us to this point. It's a free-for-all. It's a democracy. Hey.
Right. Well, it's whatever it is. It's not like it was back in the old days. Well, allegedly.
Yeah, allegedly.
Anyway, you can go talk to somebody else now.
Okay, thanks,
Ralph
Jim.
Winterwood can explain anything. Bye.
All right. Putin tells everybody exactly what's going on. And I'll tell you, in Syria, have you noticed what they're saying now? Oh, well, it looks like a ceasefire might be possible in Syria. It looks like we might have an end to the bloodshed. There's a lot of people that don't want to see that happen. And these stories that keep coming out and they're spoon-fed to the media, oh, the Russians hacked the elections, the Russians are this, Vladimir Putin really hates America, on and on and on and on it goes, trying to propagandize and poison people's minds against a non-existent enemy. Vladimir Putin's a bigger friend than I think this country doesn't have. Does that make sense? Germany's our friend. Why is Germany our friend? Why is Israel our friend? Okay, we do some business, we do some trade. Okay, I got that. Angela Merkel opening up the floodgates and poisoning Europe. That's a good thing? Putin in a press conference, and it was really a panel, and this wasn't just the press that was in attendance. There was press there. But these are heads of state from all over the world. He says, I've said this before. I have to do the translation here because I don't speak Ruski. Which, by the way, I'm finding out we got more and more Russians that speak English, even pidgin English, that listen to this broadcast. Hello, my Russian friends. I'm not buying it. Don't worry. He says, I've said this before. Another threat that President Obama mentioned was ISIS. Well, who on earth armed them? Who armed the Syrians that were fighting with Assad? Who created the necessary and political informational climate that facilitated that situation? Who pushed for the delivery of arms to the area? Do you really not understand as to who is fighting in Syria? They are mercenaries, mostly. Do you understand that they are paid money? Mercenaries fight for whichever side pays more. So they arm them and pay them a certain amount. I even know what these amounts are. So they fight, they have the arms, you can't get them to return, then they discover elsewhere it pays a little bit more. So they go fight there. Then they occupy the oil fields. Wherever, in Iraq and Syria, they start extracting the oil, and the oil is purchased by somebody. Where are the sanctions on those parties purchasing this oil? Do you believe the U.S. does not know who's buying it? It is not their allies that are buying oil from ISIS? Question mark. Do you think the U.S. has the power to influence the allies? Or is the point that they indeed do not wish to influence them? Then why bomb ISIS? In areas where they started extracting the oil and paying mercenaries more, in those areas, the rebels from civilized Syrian opposition forces immediately joined ISIS because they're paid more. I consider this absolutely unprofessional politics. It's not grounded on facts in the real world. We must support civilized democratic opposition in Syria.
ISIS is on a campaign of genocide, committing atrocities across the world. Radical Islamic terrorists are determined to strike our homeland, as they did on 9/11, as they did from Boston to Orlando to San Bernardino.
All right. Thank you, President Trump. You're up to your eyeballs, and the people would want to see you dead. God, what a mad, mad world. Just as Jesse Ventura was elected governor of Minnesota, Donald Trump was elected to the White House, and man, did that upset the apple cart. Leaks? This guy's got more leaks in his ship than the RMS Titanic, as I said before. And he's not going to be able to stop it. It will consume him. And with that, the grand plan to totally destroy what's left of this country. CIA has been drug out into the open, into the light of day, and I'm sure they're not liking it. So if you hear I've committed suicide by putting 3 bullets in the back of my head tomorrow, don't believe it. I don't know, folks. What do you think? Think we should continue or just give up? Just yield. It's inevitable. Just go with the flow. Your life will be a lot easier. You'll be a lot broker, a lot less free, a lot less informed. But you know what? Isn't ignorant bliss? You know, personally, I went through the love thing in the marriage, and out of that churning burn of, how did that saying go, Mike? The churning, burning funk of broken promises, broken hearts, and dead bodies. I don't think I'll be doing that anytime soon again. We got a fight on our hands, folks. And it ain't going to be over tomorrow. And it ain't going to be saved by any single politician. It is us to continue to educate our fellow man. Don't waste your time on a snowflake. Don't waste your time on somebody that doesn't have 2 brain cells that can synapse. In that crowd, you'll find the 1, the 2, or the 4, or the 5, maybe out of 50 or 100. But those are the people you need. Those are the people that we want, and those are the people that we need. And we've got to keep building the coalition of knowledgeable people. If we don't, the RMS Titanic is going down. Or I'm sorry, it is down. Deep, deep down. Never to come back. We're here. Are you there? We're still $6,000 short on our pledge drive, and the funds have stopped flowing. So don't be surprised one of these days you go to tune us in, and we ain't there. Help us in this fight, folks. The ammunition is the dollars for right now. Tomorrow it might have to be the bullets. God save us all if that happens. We'll take it one at a time. 800-724-2719, extension 3, call in. Make a credit card donation, debit card donation, whatever. Do it today. Do it now. Or go to the website, republicbroadcasting.org. Hit the donate button. PayPal. You don't have to be a member. Any credit card that you see on that screen that they will accept. Folks, we're in a war here. The soldiers never win a war if they're under-equipped. That's a recipe for death. We'll see you tomorrow with Gerald Celente.